Just add it to the queue. All right. So why don't you two talk to us about Creed 3?
You feeling strong now, Ronald?
I am. I am feeling strong. But stop punching me in my fucking shoulder.
That's a apparently that's a if you go to work on a guy's arm. I don't think I've quite seen that in a boxing movie
Look,
before.
it is the dirtiest thing you could do. It's so dirty. I just don't see it in boxing. And you get points. Like it's just like it's so dirty. It's such a 3-3. Jordan, Jordan, Michael B. Jordan's directorial debut.
Yes.
Wowzer. We got access to it. We got to see it early.
We poured one out for Steve.
We poured one out for
there.
you, man. There's one more press screening. You think about going to that one, Steve? How you feeling?
No, I'll be at Disney.
Oh, you're going to Disney?
Okay. Poor guy. He'll be at Disney.
Oh, too bad.
That sounds so fun. Here's what I'm gonna say. If this is the first thing I'm gonna put out there, I liked it so much that I'm probably gonna try to go to the next press screening if I could get it, if I can go.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's the first thing I'm gonna say. John, what'd you think about it initially?
I had just caught up and watched Creed 2 the day that I went to see Creed 3. So I had come out. I had enjoyed Creed 2 and thought that was good, but serviceable, not as good as Creed. But had some moments that were really nice, and I thought was filmed beautifully. But I guess so. What I was coming into this with, knowing it was Jonathan Majors playing the antagonist of this film, and knowing it was Michael B. Jordan directing, I guess I was kind of looking forward to seeing how those two things panned out. Like how does Michael B. Jordan put together this movie after being the focus of this franchise? And also Jonathan Majors is somebody who has become one of my favorite actors to watch because he's so magnetic and he does so much, but he usually does it with a point and with some taste. And he loves throwing all these flourishes into a character like Kang that we just saw last week in Quantumania. I was really looking forward to seeing him do something more grounded and build a character, in that sense. And so I think those were the two things that I was going into this movie thinking was, I wonder, and also thinking, I wonder if it's going to be better than Creed 2, just because, like I said, Creed 2 was perfectly good, but it just reminded me, and I said this before we watched Creed 3, Ronald, that like the Rocky series into the Creed series, which we can kind of consider one big mega franchise, it is one of those sort of consistent. I mean, I don't know that I've seen, there might be a couple of Rocky films that I haven't seen, but it feels like a more consistent franchise, just in the sense of there's a formula, there's a certain kind of heart that it has, there's a certain kind of way of framing a boxing match that these movies have. So having seen Creed 2 and liked it a lot, I was really going into this one going like, all right, I hope this one cinches the deal and does something a little more emotional and a little more powerful. And I think it did. I mean, I easily think this is a superior film to Creed 2. Maybe as good or better than Creed, the first one. I don't know. I just think the heart of that relationship between Damian Anderson, Jonathan Majors' character, and Creed in this film, it's so good. Like there's one scene, Steve, of them sitting in a diner having a meal together for the first time in years, these old friends. And it's a fantastic scene. Like both guys are given every little bit of nuance and juice to these two characters who are kind of feeling each other out after, and one of them has one agenda and the other one has a different, the scene I'm talking about, obviously, Ronald. It's a great moment. And it really made me think that's great when you can leave a movie and what you're thinking about is like a quiet moment of just realistic acting between two great performers. Like Michael B. Jordan, he's so pumped up now. You sort of forget that what made us love him in the first place is that the guy is a great actor. And I'm not saying that's not on display in some of his more muscly roles. I'm just saying that this is like, I thought he was fantastic in this movie.
Yeah, that's one of the things you'll take away from it. Sure, man. Like Jonathan Majors is skyrocketing in this movie. He is electric on the screen. But the only way that this works is if Michael B. Jordan carries the emotional weight of it, right? One of the things that the thread of this is kind of survivor's remorse. It's handled in a way that I honestly have never seen with two black leads, where no one gets shot. I mean, sure, it involves guns, but no one dies by a gun. The issues are handled with nuance, believe it or not. Like Keenan, what's his brother? The original director.
Ryan Coogler.
Keenan Coogler has gone through this before. Like, there's no doubt. Like, he wrote it. Like, it's so real that I was telling John that I've had these conversations. I've been at that table, and some of it is just it's a super simple idea that anybody can relate to. When you come from humble beginnings and you find a way to make it out of your situation, you sometimes have this amazingly deep guilt about that change, and
Right.
I think that anybody can relate to that, and it's handled in such a cool way. And Michael B. Jordan's directing is just it feels a little like shorthanded at some parts, a little weird at some. One thing I will complain about, I have to complain about this, is the last fight and the way it's shot.
You're talking
Michael
about
B.
the sort of dream world sort of.
I don't want to give that away, but some weird stuff they do. They're doing some weird stuff, and we got to tell you ahead of time because it's not regular. It's not
Right.
a regular fight scene. So, like, even when John says dreamlike, you still will have no idea what the hell we're talking about. But it is shot in like a dreamlike way that's just so maybe too artsy. It feels like someone trying to put their stamp on something that you already did through the amazing directing that you did for the first hour 10 of the movie, So
I agree. I want to say one thing too about that final fight. I think the final fight in a Rocky film or a Creed film is obviously this huge scene that they have to figure out some way now to make a new version of something that they now have done, 9 times before, 8 times before.
Right.
So it's like because we know the formula, and you could sort of write out the rough sketch of this movie from the beginning. Like if you watch the first 15 minutes, you could sort of predict basically what's going to happen. You might guess a little wrong in one way or the other. But I think that what we're talking about, that visualization of the fight, it is an attempt, Ronald, to bring something new to something that could feel basic and formulaic. I think it's the reason why I think it's worth mentioning is in relation to his directing, though, is because it is almost like a rare stumble step for this movie because it feels like it's a lack of confidence in the drama of the situation that you need to present it in a different way rather than just doing what they've always done. And up to that moment, some of the fighting in this movie I thought may have been directed in a more exciting way than Creed 2. I wasn't really sure, but that was something I actually worried about with this movie was with Michael B. Jordan being a first-time director, are we going to lose some of that like polish and sheen that the previous 2 Creed movies had? But the second Creed movie was directed by someone whose name I mean, I don't know. It's Ryan Coogler obviously did the first one. The second one's kind of built on the template of the first one, but I feel like this movie feels more like a director's movie than the second one did. Like it actually feels like, with touches like that, some of which work for me and some of which don't, but at least with touches like that, you feel like Michael B. Jordan is doing something as a director. And outside of a few little things like that, I felt like, oh wow, I wouldn't have known this was directed by an actor. I don't know why I feel like there's certain marks of a movie that you can sort of feel when an actor directed it. There's a certain like, sometimes they do kind of showy things with a camera that feel like this is a pretty good director's idea of a cool camera move, but it might be something a real director, a more studied director would smooth out and maybe would not do gimmicky shots or whatever. But this movie's not gimmicky, and it doesn't overly focus on Michael B. Jordan's character the way that you would think a Vanity Project would do. So I think, what you're talking about, Ronald, is a weird moment that like it's one of the few moments that kind of take you out of the human story. And I think it's an attempt to bring you further in, which is kind of an odd thing, but the choreography is great. I mean, outside of moments like that, I think there's some really good, like Jonathan Majors is so interesting to watch. He just does things that I don't know if I've seen someone do in one of these boxing movies before.
Yeah. It's
not just punching people on the arm.
Yeah. His fighting style is nuts. One thing I will say, because there are probably people that are wondering, hey, I've heard the rumors. Sylvester Stallone is not going to be in this movie. He was sad and disappointed. What makes up for that energy? Wood Harris. Wood Harris steps up as Duke, but he's kind of like a old grouchy version of himself. He's like,
Steve, it feels like they aged him up. It feels like every other character is just kind of playing, like Tessa Thompson, Michael B. Jordan, they're just themselves. But with Wood Harris, they went ahead and decided he's older now because he's like got the gray. And then they flash back And in the flashback, he looks like the other characters are kids, or Michael B. Jordan's a kid. But Wood Harris looks like he does just kind of in Creed 2, sort of. So it kind of feels like they retroactively decided in this movie. Now he's old, but I do think he gets to play he gets to play a little bit of grumpiness in this movie that I thought was kind of half funny, and half of the time he's kind of the voice of reason, don't you think, Ronald? Like he can kind of see the train wreck coming from a mile away.
He's the audience. He's like, you're old, you're slow, you're dumb. You don't know what you're doing. There's a lot of that. But it's like Wood Harris, you know what it feels like? Some of the moments on The Wire where he was being kind of a slick, cool person, but like dialed up. It's like, this is if he's out the game and he's so good in this, man.
Yeah, he really is. He really is.
He's so good.
Yeah, so much so, Ronald, that I'll echo what you're saying. I sort of thought I missed Sylvester Stallone, but then I tried to picture where he would have been in this movie, and it would have been. I mean, I was glad this movie didn't lay it on too thick. I was glad this movie clocked in at around 2 hours and not 2.5 hours. So it's like I don't know where you would have fit in Sylvester Stallone's story or an arc for Rocky. And so to me, it feels like keep a character out of a movie rather than just give him a token cameo. You know what I mean? Yeah. But the notion that he's now walked away and would never do it again, that's sort of a bummer, because it feels like if you did there are characters in this movie that are coming back from previous movies that you might not expect. And I like that idea that there's this little Rocky/Creed universe that you now have a ton of characters you can pull in, like using the Ivan Drago in the second one. So it's a bummer. Sylvester Stallone really feels hurt, but I feel like Creed 2 gives him a really great send-off moment. I don't know if you remember that moment where he's sitting he's in silhouette in the foreground, sitting looking up at the ring, and Creed has just won, and they're all lit up and nice, and it's like a painting. He's silhouetted, and he kind of straightens his hat. And I think that's the last Rocky moment we get, except for like a brief moment of him like walking into his apartment while Creed is narrating. But like it's a great send off, and it felt like to me, if this is the last time we see this character, they visualized him passing the torch beautifully in that scene. So it's a bummer to think that Sylvester Stallone would feel left out, rather than think it's kind of cool to say that Rocky got to ride off into the sunset. Yeah. And he's not dead yet. You can always bring him back in. What's weird is I don't think they mention him, do they? Like maybe once, like in passing.
I think they in pass. Oh yes, he did, because he mentioned that Rocky took a chance on Creed.
Oh right.
Or the
Creed
other
took
way
a
around.
chance on Rocky.
Creed took a chance on Rocky. But yeah, he kind of casually says it once or twice, and then you don't hear about him again. So yeah, you will get your fill of grumpy energy in the form of Wood Harris's Duke character. He's so good, man. I had an issue with Tessa Thompson sometimes.
Man, there's something about her. I can't, like, she's one of the few good people that I like that doesn't convince me that much, you know. And she definitely she puts a little too much of a spin on her lines or something. She just doesn't feel like she's quite in the same universe as everybody else.
Her Philly accent in the first one was horrific. The second one, she kind of slowed up, but she tried to do it a little bit. And now she's just like the way that Madonna moved to London and now she has a British accent. She has kind of like that famous accent. It's just like what wealth brings you, you know. And
I honestly thought she was supposed to be like have like West Indian or like Jamaican descent or something. I didn't know she was doing a Philly accent. When I watched Creed 2, I couldn't remember. Wait, where's she supposed to be from? So yeah, but I mean, I think that her British accent as a Valkyrie in the Thor movies is not that great either. We just like Tessa Thompson. She's one of those people. Steve, we were talking about this. It's like people that we love that aren't great with accents. If you start thinking about it, there are some great actors that just do weird accents. Like Anthony Hopkins sometimes will pull a really weird accent out. Ewan McGregor's American accent is very much like, hey, hi guys, I don't know what's going on. Hey, I'm from America, just like the rest of you, you know? And it's just like, sometimes great actors just don't nail it, but it doesn't mean they're not doing a good performance. I don't know. It's a funny little difference. It's not always about mastering the accents. So
right.
It's me, Ewan McGregor, the American.
So funny. Oh shoot.
But yes, I guess we're saying go ahead, everybody. I mean, but I feel like you know already. If you love these movies, this is another. I mean, Steve, what do you think about that? That this is just kind of a solid franchise that, like, you kind of know what you're getting on some level, and it usually pays off. It usually has some moment of heft or emotional payoff, at least.
I mean, for sure. I mean, I think across Rocky and Creed, you know, whatever comes of the future of the Creed franchise, or you know, you mentioned Drago. I think they're supposed to be doing like a Ivan Drago spinoff thing, but I mean, yeah, I think across this whole interconnectivity of a Rocky, Creed, Adonis franchise, I it's the kind of thing where like, yeah, I'll see every single one of them, you know, especially loving Creed and Creed 2. I'm very excited to see this one, and obviously the Jonathan Majors factor is, he's like the moment right now, you know, he's like the guy right now, and
I love it.
the reality of like, you know, back to back weeks or within the span, I saw somebody comment like in the span of 3 weeks or 2 weekends or whatever it is, that like he steals the spotlight from the two leads of big, you know, tentpole franchise movies.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, I don't know. It's consistent. I mean, these boxing movies are great. I mean, they focus a lot on character stuff. They have great fight sequences, and you know, there's a sentimentality to these movies, you know, that I think works really well. And I think there's like a different kind of vibe with the Creed franchise, and I think it works for today a lot better than Rocky would.
Yeah, right.
And
Totally.
yeah, I don't know. I think it's very bankable, and I'm glad to see that you guys both seem to really enjoy it.
Oh, we didn't mention his daughter.
Oh God, so great.
Okay, this is the last thing, man. The daughter.
Well, there was actually one other thing I wanted to mention, but yeah, mention the daughter, because this is incredible. The daughter. Yeah,
Mila Davis Kent, who plays Amara Creed, is just a force, man. She is the emotional strings in this movie. Besides the relationship between Diamond Dame and Adonis Creed, just a special relationship that Adonis has with.
It's so cute and endearing to see him with his daughter. I mean, the way he is with her is just perfect. If you you know, like it's like you don't need to see more evidence he's a good guy, but the way he is with his daughter is just, it's just adorable. Their relationship and the way that she's kind of got his number, but at the same time she looks up to him so much, and I think that puts him in a real precarious position, because he has to think about what she sees when she sees him do what he does, you know.
Right.
How she's influenced by it. It's a real subtle thing almost that gains power throughout the movie. Well, Ronald, I wanted to mention one thing. There were two things that the side of this is that the humor of this movie, that we had a little laughing boy down the aisle from us. It was, you know, Steve, it's been so long since we've been out to these physical screenings, we haven't had like a fellow audience member report.
God.
But this guy thought everything was this funny. Every 10 seconds, he went, but there would be stuff that half of the time he seemed to be laughing, correct me if I'm wrong, Ronald, like at real emotional moments that made him uncomfortable, and then the other half, or that he thought were corny or something, and then the other half of the time it would be things that were actually funny. But it was a steady like leak of air out of this guy the whole movie, and so I just wanted to celebrate that, because, you know, that was a new one for me.
It would be like Jonathan Majors' character is like, you know how it feels to do 18 years in jail? What? Like, why are you laughing at his 18 years in prison? It was so strange, man.
And then I heard you laughing a few times, and then we started laughing back and forth. The guy would do it, and then we would laugh. But the other thing, speaking of the humor of this movie, I heard you laugh at a couple moments that I laughed too, Ronald. And I think what we were laughing at was something Jonathan Majors does with his face when he's like watching somebody and his eyes are like half closed. He's like blasé, and he's got this sort of like, you know what I'm talking about? We laughed at there's 2 or 3 moments where he's like watching somebody and he's figuring out what he's about to do, and he's got this kind of like, almost like he's going without doing that. But it's just something he does. Man. There's like a little sideway. But I wondered if I just wanted to catalog that moment. Was that what you're laughing at in those moments too? Was just something he's doing with his face where he's like, how would you describe that look? What is that look?
I don't know, man. It's just like he had a clear objective from the moment that he saw Adonis Creed. Yes. And it just continues. And there's a point where the last fight where I swear he morphed into Mike Tyson. It's like his face got, like, if they had a biopic and Jamie Foxx didn't play him, I could see him playing Mike Tyson. He just kind of lost his shit, and his face was kind of like, rah, the way that Mike Tyson used to lose his shit before he knocked somebody's body into an eternal sleep.
Or bit their ear off.